the Scottish Highlands, one of the last true wildlands of Great Britain. Its crags and glens hum with the rhythms of life. But there's one species which is entwined with Highland history and culture, whose footprints have trodden every mountainside and forest floor, and whose bellows, every autumn, echo through the valleys. Red deer.
There are an estimated 400,000 red deer in Scotland, which is an exceptionally high number. And so you might think that they'd be really easy to spot, but unfortunately there is a lot of landscape for them to get lost in. But you can make it much easier for yourself to find them by looking in the right place. Where we are here is in a valley just west of Inverness, and it is perfect for red deer. Red deer are essentially forest animals. That's what they are in most of Europe, but in Scotland they've evolved to live more on the hillsides because they haven't got any natural predators. Nonetheless, red deer like to have cover, and so if you're looking for red deer, it's important to try and find areas that have also got coniferous and broadleaf cover for the deer to retreat into during the daytime. They also like to feed on things like heather and grass and fresh trees and shoots, and so this habitat is perfect. During the summer months, these red deer will like to feed right at the tops of the hills away from predators, essentially us. But during the winter months, they are forced to come down into the valleys because the tops of the hills start to freeze. And so at this time of year, October, during the rut, this valley is the perfect area to try and see some red deer. During most of the year, it can be really difficult to try and find the red deer themselves, and we're forced to rely on things like poos and prints in order to establish whether or not the animals have been there. However, during the autumn months, from about late September onwards, the animals are in rut. The males are essentially fighting for the attentions of the females, and they're making an absolute racket, which makes it much, much easier to identify exactly where the herds are. I mentioned earlier that there are an estimated 400,000 red deer in Scotland, and this has had a drastic impact on the landscape that we can see around here. During the early 1900s and during the 1800s, during shipbuilding times, huge amounts of Scotland was deforested and chopped down. Now, there have been efforts to replant and regenerate much of Scotland's forests, but that high number of red deer populations has made it really difficult for those forests to establish themselves, because they essentially act like a ginormous lawnmower moving across the landscape and eating all of that fresh growth. That's why the culling that is done by many estates throughout Scotland is so essential, because if we want to see a Scotland that is rich in diversity of both plant and animal species, we need to be able to manage these predator and prey dynamics. We as humans have to take on the role as that apex predator and keep those numbers down and keep the deer moving, because it's unlikely that we're going to see a large carnivore come back into the environment that might be able to fulfill that niche for us. Nonetheless, it is so special to hear and see these red deer in their natural environment, rather than in the parks and the wealthy estate houses that we're used to seeing around much of the UK. And that roar that we can hear in the hills is just so special.